The night Daniel chose to die, the rain had been falling all afternoon in slow, exhausted sheets, the kind of rain that felt less like weather and more like the sky giving up. Gray clouds strangled the last bit of daylight, and the city looked blurred behind the windshield of Daniel Carter's car like a painting smudged by grief. Inside the parked sedan, Daniel sat motionless in the driver's seat, hands shaking slightly as they pressed against the steering wheel. His eyes were swollen, the skin beneath them bruised by months of sleepless nights. His hair, once neatly kept for corporate meetings and presentations, hung in uneven strands that brushed his temples. In the passenger seat sat the small, amber-colored bottle. He stared at it, and it stared back. A label with his name, a warning printed in fine letters, a prescription he hadn't intended to use for its original purpose. Daniel exhaled shakily. He had once been a man people admired, CEO of Cartotech Solutions, a respectable mid-range software company. Not a billionaire, not a tycoon, but stable, trusted, proud. Now he was a man no one even wanted to call. His company had collapsed in less than 6 months, ruined by a lawsuit he could not fight, debts he couldn't cover, and the betrayal of a partner he had once considered a brother. The financial fallout had been devastating, but the emotional one, that had been fatal to everything else, his wife Emma, could no longer recognize the man he became, hollow-eyed, angry, withdrawn. Their arguments turned into long silences, and then, one morning, the silence turned into goodbye. She took their son, Oliver, and moved out, promising they would talk again when you're better. But he never got better. He only got smaller, less of a husband, less of a father, less of a man. That was how he ended up here, sitting, alone, in a dark parking lot behind the old Riverside Bridge, with nothing left inside him except the weight of his own failure. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the dimness, unsure who the apology was, for his wife, his child, God, or himself. The rain pattered gently on the roof of the car. He picked up the bottle, unscrewed the cap. The sound of the plastic cover twisting off echoed inside the empty vehicle like a death sentence being sealed. His hands trembled harder. "This is the only way, Dan," he murmured, already slipping into that numb resignation. "You've run out of chances. No one needs you anymore." He tipped the bottle slightly and watched the pills spill into his palm, white, chalky, cold. His breathing picked up. His heart thudded painfully. He closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek. "God, if you're there, I'm sorry." He raised his hand, and then his phone rang. A sharp, sudden sound that cut through the storm and pierced the thick silence. Daniel froze. The pills rolled across his palm. The ringtone persisted, vibrating against the center console. He almost ignored it, almost let it ring out, almost swallowed everything in his hand. But something, maybe instinct, maybe fear, maybe the faintest trace of hope, made him reach for the phone. He didn't recognize the number. An unknown caller at 6:17 p.m. He hesitated. Then he answered. "Hello." His voice cracked, uneven. There was a moment of static, then a small voice, soft, fragile, undeniably a child's, whispered. Hi, are you the angel my mommy said would come for me today?" Daniel blinked. For a moment, he thought his mind was playing tricks. "Angel," he repeated. "Yes," the little voice said, trembling but hopeful. "Mommy said God would send an angel to help me go through the scary part. She said he'd call first because God doesn't want me to feel alone." Daniel stared at the handful of pills still in his palm. He felt something tighten in his chest. "Sweetheart," I think you have the wrong number, he said gently, though his throat tightened painfully. No, the child replied with certainty. God doesn't make mistakes. Mommy said so. Daniel went silent. He swallowed. What's your name? He asked softly. Aiden, the boy said. I'm 8, and today is the day the doctors said something bad might happen. Mommy said an angel would come at the exact time God chose. Daniel's breath stopped. What time? He whispered. 6:17, Aiden said simply. That's now. Daniel's phone screen glowed. 6:17 p.m. Lightning flashed outside. Thunder rolled across the dark sky. And for the first time in months, the pills fell from Daniel's hand. Where are you, Aiden? At the hospital, in room 317. I'm scared. Can you come? Daniel didn't know why he said what he said next. Maybe because the voice reminded him of his own son. Maybe because something inside him cracked open. Maybe because a child was believing he was an angel, while he was sitting here trying to die. Whatever the reason, Daniel heard himself answer, I'm coming. A tiny breath of relief came through the speaker. Thank you. The call ended. Daniel sat in the darkness, stunned, rain still tapping on the windshield, like faint fingertips urging him forward. Then, slowly, he turned the key in the ignition. The engine started. He pulled out of the parking lot, and for the first time in a very long time, he chose life. The drive to St. Matthew's Children's Hospital felt unreal, like Daniel was moving through someone else's life, not his own. The rain had softened into a thin mist, drifting across the windshield like ghosts fleeing from the night. Streetlights cast long reflections across the wet pavement, glowing like broken halos. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles pale, breathing uneven. Every turn of the road seemed to echo the same question in his mind. What am I doing? He didn't know the child, didn't know the mother, didn't know why the call came to his number, didn't understand why the boy believed he was an angel. But one thing he did know. If he'd stayed in that parking lot 5 minutes longer, he would be dead. The weight of that truth pressed heavily on his chest as he drove. It felt like something had reached into the pitch-black moment of his desperation and pulled him back by the collar. But who and why? He didn't dare think too far ahead. It hurt. Everything hurt. The loneliness, the guilt, the feeling of being useless, the crushing shame that Emma and Oliver had seen him fall apart and could only walk away. And worst of all, how close he had come to ending everything. His stomach twisted. He pulled into the hospital parking lot. The building rose before him, white walls glowing softly beneath the street lamps, large windows illuminated by sterile fluorescent light. It looked peaceful from the outside, but Daniel felt a tremor run through him as he stepped out of the car. The sound of his shoes splashing through puddles echoed sharply in the quiet night. He pushed through the glass doors. Warmth wrapped around him, immediately clean air, soft lighting, muted beeping of machines, nurses in pastel uniforms gliding down the hallways. There was a strange sense of calm, but also a heavy sadness. A children's hospital always carried both. At the reception desk, a young nurse looked up with a polite smile. "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" Daniel swallowed, realizing he didn't know exactly what to say. "I received a call," he began slowly, "from a child, a boy named Aiden. He asked me to come." The nurse's expression shifted. It softened, but her brows pinched slightly, concern flickering. "Aiden Ward?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded. She inhaled, gently, gaze lowering a bit. He's in the pediatric oncology unit, room 317, oncology, Daniel repeated, throat tightening. The nurse seemed to recognize the tremble in his voice. He's a strong kid, she said with a sad sort of warmth. Very brave, always smiling at the staff. He's been here for months. And his mother? Daniel asked. She passed away 3 weeks ago. Daniel blinked, his breath caught. The nurse continued softly. He doesn't have any other family who visits. That sentence struck him like a fist. The boy had called him thinking he was an angel because he had no one else. Daniel felt something heavy shift inside his chest guilt. Grief, confusion, compassion, all folding into one unsteady sensation. "Thank you," he managed to say. The nurse nodded and pointed down the hall. "Elevator on your left, 3rd floor. Room 317 is at the end of the corridor." Daniel followed her directions. As he walked, the corridor felt impossibly long. His footsteps sounded loud against the quiet hum of hospital equipment. There were murals on the walls, bright drawings of cartoon animals, smiling suns, painted rainbows, an attempt to bring joy to a place filled with fear. It almost worked, but the deeper he walked into the unit, the heavier the smell of antiseptic became, cold, bitter, lonely. When he reached the elevator, he pressed the button and waited. His reflection in the metal doors stared back at him. He barely recognized the man looking at him. Hair disheveled, eyes dimmed, face drawn from stress, clothes wrinkled. A man who had given up. He lowered his gaze. "Why am I here? Why me? Why room 317? The elevator chimed and the doors slid open. Daniel stepped inside. He pressed the 3, and the elevator rose smooth, slow, humming softly. His heart hammered harder with every floor. When the doors opened, a cool breeze drifted in from the air conditioning. The 3rd floor corridor was dimmer than the lobby, quieter, calmer, almost sacred in its stillness. He walked forward. Each step echoed at the end of the hall. A soft glow of light spilled through the small window of the door. Inside, he could hear the faint beeping of a heart monitor. His pulse quickened. For a moment, he hesitated. He was a stranger. He didn't belong here. He shouldn't be here. He was no angel. He couldn't help anyone, not even himself. He turned half away from the door. He almost left. Almost, but then he heard it. A voice, small, weak, but hopeful, float through the crack. "Are you there, angel?" Daniel froze. The words struck him straight through the chest. Slowly, he turned back. His hand reached for the doorknob. He inhaled, exhaled, then pushed the door open into the light of room 317, where a boy who believed in miracles was waiting for him. The room was lit by a single overhead lamp, soft, warm, and golden, like a candle flickering in darkness. It cast a gentle glow across the hospital bed, where a small boy lay thin beneath the blankets, his skin pale but his eyes bright, shockingly bright, eyes that didn't look defeated or sick or frightened, eyes that looked expectant, as if he knew someone important had just walked in, as if he'd been waiting. The boy's face softened when the door creaked open and his lips curved into a frail smile. "You came," he whispered. Daniel stood in the doorway, frozen, unsure if he should step forward. He suddenly felt enormous, too big, too clumsy, too broken for a room so fragile. "Yes," he finally said, voice low, unsteady. "I came." Aiden lifted his hand weakly, inviting him closer. "Can you turn on the lamp beside you? It gets dark sometimes, and Mommy said angels shine when they're near." Daniel swallowed the knot forming in his throat. He wasn't an angel. He wasn't anything close to it. If the boy knew the truth, that Daniel had been minutes from ending his own life, he would surely take back every hopeful word. But Aiden didn't know. Or maybe he knew something Daniel didn't. Daniel walked toward the bedside table and clicked on the small reading lamp. A warm circle of light spread across the bedsheets. Aiden smiled again, soft but genuine. There. Now you look more like I imagined. Daniel felt his chest tighten painfully. He pulled up the chair next to the bed and sat down. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady but faint beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor. Aiden studied him with curious eyes. "You're not what I thought an angel would look like," he said matter-of-factly. Daniel gave a small, awkward laugh. "I'm definitely not an angel, kid." "Yes, you are," Aiden said, completely certain. "You answered when I called." Angels always answer. Daniel's throat burned. He looked at the frail boy, at the small four taped to the back of his hand, at the bruises forming around the needle marks. He remembered what the nurse told him. He has no family left. His mother died 3 weeks ago. He's alone. A child calling a stranger for comfort wasn't strange. Believing that stranger was an angel was heartbreaking. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Aiden, why did you call me?" The boy blinked slowly. "I didn't call you," he said softly. "I called the number Mommy wrote in her Bible before she died." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. "A Bible?" he asked. Aiden nodded. "She said God would send someone when the scary part came. Someone who knows pain. Someone who understands being lost." Daniel stared at him. Aiden continued. "She didn't tell me who, just that I should call the number in the front page. She wrote it there the night before she went to heaven." Daniel's breath hitched. "What was the number?" he whispered. Aiden recited it. It was Daniel's phone number. Exactly his. Daniel felt his entire body go cold, a sensation like icy water pouring over him. "That's impossible," he murmured. Aiden tilted his head gently. "Mommy said God doesn't do impossible things. Only we think they're impossible." Daniel shook his head, stunned. He had never met this woman. He had never given his number to anyone at this hospital. He had never crossed paths with her in any way he could recall. So how could his number have ended up in her Bible before she died? He pressed a hand to his forehead. "Kid, that doesn't make any sense." Aiden touched his arm with trembling fingers. "Miracles never make sense at first." The boy's voice was so soft, so confident, so strangely peaceful, that Daniel felt something inside him crack open. Something old, something he had buried. Aiden watched him closely. "Are you sad?" the boy asked suddenly. Daniel blinked. "What? Your eyes look like you cried for a long time." Daniel looked away. He didn't want the kid to see him like this. Weak, broken. "I've had a difficult day," he said quietly. Aiden nodded slowly, as if he understood more than a child should. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "Angels always carry heavy things." Daniel exhaled shakily. "Aiden, I'm not." But the boy didn't let him finish. "You want to know a secret?" Aiden whispered. Daniel hesitated. "What is it?" The boy's eyes glimmered, soft, kind, ancient, in a way that didn't belong to an 8. "People think angels start out perfect. But Mommy said the strongest ones are the broken ones God puts back together." Daniel stared at him. Aiden smiled faintly. "You came because you're broken. That's why I knew it was you." The room went silent, completely silent. The beeping faded into the background. The hospital lights seemed dimmer. Everything else in Daniel's world narrowed down to one small boy lying in a hospital bed, looking at him like he was something more than a failure, more than a man who almost ended his life. Aiden reached out again. "Can you hold my hand?" he asked softly. It hurts less when someone holds it. Daniel felt his heart crumble. He took the boy's hand, tiny, fragile, warm. Aiden sighed with relief, almost as if he'd been waiting for that touch. After a moment, he whispered, "I'm glad you didn't die tonight." Daniel's eyes widened. His entire body froze. How? How could you possibly? Aiden closed his eyes, resting peacefully. "I told you," he murmured. "God doesn't make mistakes." For several minutes, Daniel sat in silence, still holding Aiden's small hand. The boy's fingers rested gently between his own, warm despite the cold of the hospital air. Outside the window, the rain had returned, pattering against the glass in soft, rhythmic taps. It was soothing, almost like a heartbeat, a fragile, trembling heartbeat. Aiden's chest rose and fell slowly, each breath shallow but steady. His eyelids fluttered as though he were drifting in and out of sleep. Daniel studied his face. The child was impossibly thin cheeks, sunken dark circles beneath his eyes, hair dull from months of chemotherapy. But there was a strange radiance to him, something that felt out of place in a room filled with sterility and sorrow. Not physical radiance, something deeper, something Daniel didn't have a name for. He gently loosened his grip on Aiden's hand, intending to let the boy rest, but Aiden's fingers curled tighter, unwilling to let go. "Stay," Aiden whispered, without opening his eyes. Daniel froze. "I'm here," he said softly. The boy relaxed again, breathing more evenly. After a moment, Daniel cleared his throat. "Aiden, can I ask you something?" A faint smile touched the boy's lips. "You already are." Daniel exhaled shakily. "That Bible you mentioned, the one your mother wrote my number in, where is it?" Aiden's eyelids fluttered open just enough to reveal soft brown eyes. "In the drawer," he whispered. "Mommy always told me to keep it close, in case the angels came sooner than she thought." Daniel stood slowly, not wanting to disturb him. He stepped toward the bedside table and pulled the drawer open. Inside was a small, worn Bible, corners frayed, cover faded, pages yellowed. It looked old, loved, and used. Daniel lifted it carefully, as though afraid it might crumble in his hands. He sat back down and opened the front cover and froze. There on the inside page was his phone number, written clearly, deliberately, in soft blue ink. Tears stung his eyes. "Aiden, this handwriting." "Mommy's," the boy answered softly. Daniel stared harder. He ran his thumb across the ink, as if touching it would help him understand. "But she wrote this before she died," he said quietly. Aiden nodded weakly. "Yes." Daniel shook his head, confused and shaken. "But she didn't know me. She couldn't have known me. She couldn't have known my number." Aiden watched him with a calmness that felt impossibly mature. "Mommy prayed a lot before she got sick," he whispered. "She said sometimes God lets you see things you don't understand yet." Daniel's voice cracked. "But why me?" Aiden blinked slowly. "Because you were going to die tonight." The words hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. He swallowed hard. "Aiden, you can't know that." The boy held his gaze, steady, unblinking. "You were sitting in your car, behind the bridge, with a bottle in your hand. You said sorry to someone. Then you cried." Daniel's heart stopped. His breath caught in his throat. Every hair on his arms stood up. Aiden wasn't guessing. He wasn't speculating. He was describing it exactly as if he had been there. Daniel felt ice crawl up his spine. How? How do you know that? Aiden didn't answer immediately. He closed his eyes again, tired from speaking too much. When he opened them, they glimmered, soft but hauntingly deep. Because God told Mommy someone would be standing at the edge of their last night, he whispered. Someone who needed to be saved as much as I did. Daniel's voice trembled. But why would he choose me? Aiden smiled faintly. Because broken people save each other. Daniel felt something inside him collapse. His chest tightened, breath hitching painfully. For months, he had carried the weight of failure alone. He had told himself he wasn't worth saving. But here, in this tiny room, a dying child was looking at him like he mattered. Aiden's voice softened further. Mommy said angels aren't people with wings. They're people who show up when you're about to fall. Daniel felt tears sliding down his face, quietly, He bowed his head, trying to compose himself, but emotion crashed over him. Grief, guilt, gratitude, disbelief, all tangled into one raw, shaking storm. Aiden's small hand reached out and touched his sleeve. Don't cry, the boy whispered. Angels can cry, but only when they're healing. Daniel let out a broken breath. Aiden, I can't help you. I'm not special. I'm not strong. You're here, Aiden interrupted gently. That's enough. The boy's hand slid back onto the blanket, his strength fading. After a moment, Aiden whispered, Can I tell you something else? Daniel wiped his eyes and nodded. Aiden's voice trembled. I prayed tonight, he murmured. I told God I didn't want to be alone when the pain got worse. Daniel's heart clenched, and he sent you. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. Aiden, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what any of this means, but I promise I won't leave you alone. Not tonight. The boy smiled weakly. I know. His eyes fluttered closed, and within moments, he drifted into a soft, peaceful sleep, still smiling faintly, as if some invisible comfort held him. Daniel sat beside him in silence, holding the Bible in his lap, holding the weight of a miracle he didn't understand, holding the hand of a child who believed in him more than he believed in himself. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Inside room 317, something had begun. Something small, something fragile, something holy. The rain poured down that evening as if heaven itself was grieving. Min pulled his thin jacket tighter around his shoulders, but the cold still cut through him like a blade. He was walking with no clear destination, only feeling a strange pull inside him, something that whispered, Go forward, keep going. There is something you must see. Ever since the night in the warehouse, the night of the impossible light, the night he heard a voice no human tongue could speak, Min had been living in a strange half-world. He breathed, he worked, he spoke with people. But inside, something had shifted, something had awakened, and tonight that something was guiding his steps. The storm grew heavier. Thunder rolled across the sky. Flashing lights painted the clouds white for brief moments, revealing the distant outline of the old city bridge. Min lifted his head. Why was he here? He didn't know, but he crossed the street anyway. The bridge was almost empty, except for the wind howling through the railings and the rain slapping against the concrete. Min walked slowly toward the center, his shoes soaked, his breath white in the cold night air, and then he froze. There was someone standing at the railing, a young woman, soaked, shivering, and leaning dangerously far over the edge. For a moment, Min thought the rain was distorting his vision. Then the truth hit him like ice water. She was going to jump. His heart slammed against his ribs. "Hey," Min yelled, voice cracking. "No reaction, miss. Please, step back." Still no response. He took a cautious step forward. The woman finally turned her head. Her eyes were empty, completely, devastatingly empty. The kind of emptiness that comes only when someone has run out of reasons to stay alive. What do you want?" she asked softly. Min swallowed. His throat felt dry despite the rain. "I don't want you to do this," he said. His voice trembled, but his feet kept moving. She shook her head. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about my life." "No," Min answered quietly. "But I know pain. I know what it feels like to think there's nothing left." A small, bitter laugh escaped her. "Then you know I'm doing the right thing." She shifted her weight slightly forward, and Min's heart nearly stopped. "Wait," he cried. But she only closed her eyes, and that was when it happened. A sudden flash of white light, brighter than lightning, illuminated the entire bridge. Min instinctively shielded his face, stumbling back. For a moment, the world was painted in pure, blinding brilliance, and when the light faded, someone was standing behind the woman, a figure, tall, luminous, wrapped in a glow that rain could not touch, a being made not of flesh, but of light. Min's breath caught in his throat. He recognized it. He recognized him. The same light from the warehouse, the same presence, the same impossible warmth. But this time, the light had a shape, a clearer shape, almost human, almost angelic. The figure placed a gentle, radiant hand on the woman's shoulder. She gasped as widening as if a warmth had just flooded her soul. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the wet concrete, sobbing uncontrollably. The glowing figure looked at Min directly through the rain, through the darkness, and through him. Min's legs trembled. The light spoke not aloud, but inside his chest, resonating like a deep bell. "You were brought here to witness. You will understand soon." Then the light dissolved into the rain, gone, silent, as if it had never existed. But something had changed, not just in the woman, who now clung to the railing, crying as if her soul were being washed clean, but in Min. The miracle was no longer only his. It was happening again, through him, around him, because he was meant to see it. Min approached the trembling woman and gently helped her stand. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not alone tonight." She looked at him not with emptiness this time, but with stunned disbelief. What was that light?" she whispered. "Did you see it too?" Min exhaled shakily. "Yes," he said, his voice barely audible. "I did." The woman's legs were too weak to support her. Min guided her slowly toward the safer side of the walkway, letting her lean on his arm. The rain softened now, falling not in angry sheets, but in gentle trails, as if the storm itself had bowed its head in reverence to what had just happened. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Only the distant sound of traffic and the soft hiss of rain filled the silence. When the woman finally found her voice, it came out thin and shaky. I don't understand," she whispered. Her fingers clutched the rail behind her, as if reality itself might slip away if she let go. What was that light? Why did it feel like she searched for the word, but couldn't find it? Min swallowed, heart still pounding. Warmth still lingered in his hands, the warmth from touching the light weeks earlier, the same warmth he felt radiating from the figure that saved her. "It felt like someone was holding you," Min said softly. "Didn't it?" Her eyes widened. She nodded slowly. "Yes, exactly like that. Like something wrapped around my chest, a trembling hand pressed against her heart. And for the first time in months, I felt alive. I felt her voice cracked. I felt loved. Min inhaled sharply. The words seemed to echo inside him. Loved, not forgiven, not corrected, not warned. Loved. The light hadn't shouted, hadn't threatened, hadn't demanded anything. It simply appeared and held her. "Can I ask your name?" Min said gently. She wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve. "Lin." "How old are you, Lin?" 23. She gave him a tired, broken half smile. "Still young enough to be stupid, I guess." Min shook his head. "That's not what tonight was." She looked down. Her shoes were soaked, and her hair clung to her face. But her eyes were no longer dead. They shimmered with confusion, fear, and the faintest flicker of hope. A flicker that hadn't been there minutes ago. "Do you want to sit for a moment?" Min asked. Lin hesitated, then nodded. They moved to a covered corner of the bridge, near one of the massive concrete pillars. Min took off his jacket thin, as it was and draped it around her shoulders. "You're going to catch a cold," he said softly. She blinked at him. "You came out here in a storm to help someone you've never met." He let out a small, humorless laugh. "Honestly, I don't even know why I left my house tonight. I just felt like something was pulling me," he added quietly, "and now I know why." Lin hugged the jacket tighter. Maybe it was God. The word hung between them, heavy, sacred, challenging. Min felt something stir again in his chest. "Maybe," he said, "but I think he wanted you to know something tonight." Lin looked up, trembling. "No, what?" "That your story isn't finished." Min met her eyes. "That you matter, even when you think you don't." A tear slid down her cheek, but it was different this time, clear, not desperate. "You said you felt like something held you," Min continued. "That's not nothing, Lin. People don't feel warmth like that in moments like yours, unless someone intervenes." Her lips parted. "You saw it too, right?" "I didn't imagine it." "No." Min's voice cracked with certainty. "You didn't. I've seen that light before." Lin blinked in confusion. What exactly did you see?" Min hesitated. He didn't want to scare her, but he also didn't want to lie. "A figure," Min said finally. "A being made of light. It wasn't human, and it wasn't evil or frightening. It was gentle, powerful, but gentle." Lin stared at him, stunned. Min continued, voice barely above a whisper. "And it saved me too, a while ago. In a place where nobody could hear me call for help. I should have died that night." The woman covered her mouth with both hands. A choked sob escaped her. "So it wasn't just me," she whispered into her palms. "It wasn't just in my mind." "No," Min said, "it wasn't." For the first time since he approached her, a faint glow, but real, returned to her expression. Not the glow of the light, but the glow of someone who had been pulled back from the edge and seen a glimpse of something divine. "What do I do now?" Lin asked. Her voice was soft, vulnerable, afraid of the future, but no longer willing to run from it. Min considered her question carefully. "You start with breathing," he said. "One breath at a time, one step at a time." He paused. "And you don't walk through it alone." He reached out a hand. Lin looked at it. For a moment, Min feared she would refuse, but slowly, with trembling fingers, she placed her hand in his, and the rain around them seemed too quiet, as if heaven itself was listening. Lin's hand was ice cold in Min's, but there was a fragile strength hiding beneath the trembling. Min didn't pull her closer or try to embrace her. He simply held her hand, steady and firm, like an anchor thrown into stormy water. For a long moment, The only sound was the rain tapping softly against the concrete. The world around them seemed to slow. Even the river beneath the bridge flowed quieter, as if it too understood the sacredness of this moment. "Do you want to talk?" Min asked gently. Lynn hesitated. Her eyes flickered pain, uncertainty, then a faint willingness. "I don't know where to start." "Start anywhere," Min said softly. "I'm here. I'll listen." She swallowed hard, pulling in a shaky breath. "My mom passed away last year," she began. "My dad left when I was a kid, so it was just the two of us. She worked 3 jobs to keep me in school. She used to say, 'We only have each other, Khan. So we don't give up. Not ever.'" Her voice cracked at the last words. Min listened in silence, not interrupting, not urging her to hurry, just listening. Lynn continued, wiping her face with her wet sleeve. "When she died, it broke something in me. I felt like I lost the last piece of the world that loved me. After that, bills piled up. I dropped out of university, and then I lost the apartment. A friend let me sleep on her couch, but she took another trembling breath. I felt like I was becoming a burden, like everyone would be better off without me." Min's heart clenched. He recognized that dark spiral. He had walked through it himself. "You weren't a burden," Min said quietly. "But it felt like I was," Lynn whispered. "And feelings, sometimes they get so loud, you start believing them." Min nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." She looked up at him, surprised. "You said something saved you before," she whispered. "What happened to you?" Min inhaled deeply, rainwater dripping from his hair. He had never told anyone, not a single soul, because who would believe him? But right now, in front of this young woman whose life had been dangling above the darkness minutes ago, hiding the truth felt wrong. "I was attacked," Min said quietly. "In a warehouse on the edge of the city, I thought. I wasn't going to make it out alive." Lynn's breath caught. She instinctively reached out, as if wanting to reassure him. "I couldn't move," Min continued. "And when I finally gave up, really gave up, that's when the light appeared. It touched me. It healed me, and it told me." He hesitated, not out of fear, but because speaking those words again sent a shiver through him. "It told me, I have not forgotten you." Lynn's eyes filled again with tears, not sadness this time, but awe. "And after that night," Min added softly, "I felt like something was guiding me, not controlling me, just nudging me. And tonight, that nudge led me to you." Lynn pressed her hands to her mouth. Her shoulders shook, not with despair, but with overwhelmed emotion. "Why me?" she whispered. "I'm nobody. I'm just broken." Min gently shook his head. "Everyone who receives a miracle thinks they're not worthy of it," he said. "But maybe that's the point." Lynn looked down at their hands intertwined, rainwater dripping between their fingers. "So what do I do now?" she asked again. "You live," Min said simply. "And not because you owe the world anything, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because tonight proved that heaven hasn't let go of you." Lynn let out a shaky, breathless laugh, half cry, half relief. "I don't know if I have the strength." "You don't need to have it all tonight," Min said. "One step is enough." She nodded, eyes closing as a tear slid down her cheek. Min continued, voice gentle but certain. "You're going to be okay, Lynn. Not all at once, not tomorrow, but little by little. Just don't walk away from the road you were meant to stay on." The rain finally eased, thinning to a mist that danced around them like drifting silver threads. Min looked out over the river, feeling a strange, quiet certainty settle in his chest. Something had changed tonight. Not just for Lynn, but for him too. It wasn't just a miracle. It was a calling. He didn't know what he was supposed to do next, but he knew this: he wouldn't be walking alone anymore. Lynn sniffled, wiped her eyes, and whispered, Can you walk me home?" Min nodded, without hesitation. Of course. They stepped away from the railing. The bridge lights glowed softly behind them, and somewhere far above the clouds, a faint, invisible radiance lingered in the air, watching. The city was quieter than usual as Min and Lin made their way off the bridge. Midnight wrapped the streets in a hush, broken only by the hum of distant traffic and the rhythmic splash of water dripping from rooftops. Lin walked close beside Min, her steps uncertain, like someone relearning how to exist. Every few moments, she glanced back at the bridge, the place she almost ended her life, and the place where something divine had intervened. Min noticed, slowing his pace. "You okay?" Lin nodded, though her voice wavered. "It's just strange. A few hours ago, I was convinced no one would ever come for me, and then," she swallowed hard, "and then you showed up, and that light." Min exhaled, his breath curling in the cold air. "I'm glad I got there in time," he said softly. Lin hugged his jacket tighter. "You got there exactly when you were meant to." They walked through a narrow alley lit by flickering street lamps. A cat darted past them, its paws splashing through puddles. Min kept a careful distance beside Lin, not wanting to overwhelm her, but making sure she felt safe. Eventually, she asked, "Do you think the light was an angel?" Min paused. The word had floated through his mind more than once, but saying it out loud felt enormous. "Sacred, maybe," he said. "Or maybe it was something even bigger. I don't know what to call it, but it wasn't human." Lin nodded slowly, processing this. "When it touched me," she whispered, "I felt like all the noise in my head went silent. The anger, the sadness, the voices telling me I wasn't enough, they just disappeared." Min understood that feeling all too well. "It felt the same for me," he said, "like someone wiped away the darkness inside, even if just for a moment." Lin glanced at him curiously. "Does it still feel that way? For you, I mean?" Min hesitated. "The truth wasn't simple. It comes and goes," he said. "I still have bad days, but ever since that night, there's this warmth inside me, like something is watching over me, guiding me. And when I start slipping, I feel it again, just enough to keep me standing." Lin lowered her gaze. "I want that. I want to feel it again." "You will," Min assured her. "Not because you try harder, but because you asked for help tonight." Min looked at her with a gentle certainty. "He heard you before you even spoke." They reached a quiet residential block. Soft yellow lights glowed from apartment windows above, casting warm squares on the wet pavement. Lin stopped in front of a small building with peeling paint and a rusted stairway. "This is where I'm staying," she said. Min studied the staircase, slippery from the rain. "Let me walk you up." Lin shook her head immediately. No, it's okay. I don't want to bother you." "You're not bothering me," Min said. "You almost died tonight. I'm not leaving until you're safe inside." Her eyes softened, grateful but hesitant, like no one had ever insisted on her safety before. Together, they climbed the metal steps, Min walking slightly ahead so she could use his arm for balance. On the second floor, they reached a narrow corridor that smelled faintly of damp clothes and old wood. Lin stopped in front of a door with chipped paint and a crooked number 12. "This is it," she whispered. Min nodded, unsure what else to say. A heavy silence formed, the kind that sits between two people who shared something profound and don't know how to walk away from it. Lin turned to him slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Not just for tonight, but for staying, for listening, for not letting me disappear." "You're welcome," Min replied softly. She hesitated, then added, "And I know this sounds strange, but could I see you again? Not because I want to cling to you, but because tonight was the first time I didn't feel completely alone." Min felt something tighten in his chest. "Not romantic, not dramatic, just human, of course," he said. "As often as you need." Lin let out a relieved breath. She reached for her keys, but before inserting them into the lock, she looked back at Min one last time. "Do you think," she whispered, "that the light will come again?" Min thought about the warehouse, the bridge, the voice, the warmth. He looked her straight in the eyes. "I don't think it ever left." Lin's eyes filled again, but this time not with despair. She opened the door, stepping into the dim apartment interior. Before closing it, she said, "Good night, Min." "Good night, Lin." The door clicked shut. Min stood there for a moment longer, rain dripping from his hair, jacket still missing from his shoulders, but a quiet heat blooming inside him. Something told him this wasn't the end of their story. Something told him the light wasn't finished. Not with her, not with him, not with anything. He took a slow, steady breath and began the walk back into the night, unaware that something was already waiting for him in the shadows ahead. Something that shimmered faintly, almost invisible to the human eye. But watching him closely, the villagers froze. For a heartbeat, no one spoke, only the sound of rain pounding the mud, sliding across rooftops, dripping from banana leaves. But there was one place it did not fall: on him. Elias stood in the center of the courtyard, barefoot, eyes half closed, palms open, yet the rain bent around him as though guided by invisible hands. The water curved, split, flowed off an unseen barrier, leaving a dry circle around his body nearly 3 meters wide. Someone gasped. Someone else made the sign of the cross. Old Mira, who had been the first to call him cursed, fell to her knees. Even the dogs stopped barking. Elias didn't move. His expression wasn't pride or fear. It was something far more unsettling: surrender. As if he were merely allowing something to act through him. Pastor Gabriel pushed forward, soaked to the bone, eyes sharp with disbelief. "Stop this," he shouted over the downpour. "Whatever you're doing, stop." But Elias looked up and smiled gently. "I am not doing anything." Then he lifted one hand, pointed toward the sky, and the villagers watched the impossible. The rain above him began to reverse. Droplets froze in midair, shimmering like suspended diamonds, then floated upward, rising back into the clouds, as though time itself had decided to move backward. A few children screamed. One woman fainted. Even Gabriel staggered back. Thunder ripped across the sky like a warning. Elias' voice cut through the storm, soft, but carrying the weight of something older than language. "Do you still believe I asked for this?" For a moment, no one dared breathe. The rain resumed its natural fall, crashing onto Elias, as if whatever shield protected him had dissolved. His clothes darkened with water, his hair plastered to his face. He looked normal again, small, human, breakable, but no one in the courtyard saw him that way anymore. Gabriel swallowed hard. His voice trembled not with anger, but with something like fear. What are you?" Elias shook his head. "Nothing more than a man." His eyes softened. though a shadow of sorrow lingered behind them. But someone is reaching for me. I don't know why I didn't choose it, and I don't know if it's a blessing. He stepped forward, rain dripping from his fingertips, or a warning. A murmur rolled through the villagers' fear, confusion. Some whispered prophet, others whispered devil. The storm began to quiet, the roar fading into a soft drizzle. Elias continued, "You want the truth, I'm terrified. Every night the voice grows louder, every day the signs grow stronger." And now he glanced at the sky, where the clouds seemed to pulse in slow breaths. "Now I fear it is no longer speaking to me." His voice dropped to a whisper, but speaking through me, no one replied. The entire village held its breath. Then a distant sound broke the silence. A horn, long, low, and hollow, coming from the mountains beyond the valley. A horn no one had heard in decades. Elias' face drained of color. He knew that sound. He had heard it before, not on earth, but in the dream. The villagers looked to Elias for answers, but his eyes were wide, fixed on the mountains with a fear that chilled the blood. "It's starting," he whispered. "God is coming." The echo of the horn rolled down the mountains like a living thing's low, ancient, vibrating through the soil, rattling the bamboo fences and sending a wave of cold through every person in the courtyard. No one moved. Even the rain seemed to hesitate, falling softer, quieter, as if listening. Pastor Gabriel's lips trembled. "That horn, it can't be real. That sound belongs to his voice, died." He didn't want to finish the sentence, because everyone knew exactly what he was thinking. No human instrument could produce a sound like that. Elias took one step backward, his bare heel sinking slightly into the wet earth. His shoulders tightened, pupils shrinking to pinpoints. The villagers watched him like prey, watching an animal that has suddenly become a predator. A boy tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Ma, is Uncle Elias gonna die?" She covered the child's mouth instantly, terrified that even asking would provoke something unseen. Gabriel wiped his face, though the rain had long done the job. He stepped toward Elias cautiously, as if approaching a man standing on the edge of a cliff. "What did you mean?" Gabriel asked quietly. "What is starting?" Elias swallowed. His throat bobbed. "I told you the voice was changing," he said. At first, it spoke words. Then, he hesitated. "It began showing me things." "What things?" Elias looked him straight in the eye. "Places that don't exist, creatures that breathe light, cities that sing, and a throne." The horn sounded again. This time, it was louder, much louder. The villagers clamped their hands over their ears, but it didn't help. The sound didn't enter through the ears alone. It vibrated the ribs, the teeth, the spine. Some felt it inside their skulls, like someone knocking gently from within. Elias staggered, his knees buckled. No, not now, not while they're watching. He tried to stand, but something forced him to the ground. His palms slapped into the mud. A tremor shook his arms. Gabriel rushed forward to help, but the moment his hands touched Eli's shoulder, he was thrown backwards. Not by force, by fear. Gabriel's breath left his lungs in a violent gasp. His eyes widened in horror, because when he touched Elias, he felt something enormous. Something that was not Elias. Something ancient, pressing through him, like a hand pushing against fragile glass. Gabriel scrambled back. "God, help us." The rain intensified suddenly, turning into a sheet of water as the wind howled through the valley. The bamboo groaned, chickens shrieked, doors slammed open. Elias lifted his face slowly. His eyes were no longer brown. They glowed faintly like embers under ashes. Lightning flashed, reflecting in the impossible shine of his pupils. He whispered, "He is near." A woman burst into tears. An elderly man fell to his knees, trembling. Several villagers backed away, tripping in the mud as they tried to escape. But the sky was the first to react. A single bolt of lightning split the clouds not white, but gold, and the entire valley lit up in a blinding flash. Every villager turned toward the mountains. For the first time they saw it, a silhouette, tall, impossible, standing on the ridgeline where no human could stand, not moving, not breathing, just watching. Elias's voice trembled with something halfway between awe and terror. "That is the one who called me." Gabriel's heart nearly stopped. "You mean," Elias answered, without looking away. "Yes, the one in the mountains is the voice." The silhouette on the mountain ridge did not move. It stood against the storm like a pillar of shadow, taller than any human, its edges blurred by the rain, its presence so heavy that even the thunder failed to swallow it. The villagers huddled together, paralyzed by a primal instinct older than civilization. Run, hide, pray, but none could move. Elias was still kneeling in the mud, shaking violently as the glow in his eyes flickered. He pressed his palms against the earth as if trying to anchor himself. Gabriel whispered, voice cracking, "Elias, look at me. Who is that? What does it want?" Elias didn't answer at first. His breath stuttered in his chest, shallow and unsteady. "It isn't here for me," he finally whispered. Gabriel frowned. "Then who?" Elias looked up. His glowing eyes scanned the courtyard, pausing on each face briefly, as if counting souls. Then he whispered a sentence that froze every heart. "It came for all of you." Another bolt of golden lightning split the sky. This time it struck the mountainside far away, but violently enough to shake the ground beneath their feet. Pebbles rolled down the slopes. Trees shuddered. The silhouette moved just slightly. A shift of weight, a tilt of the head, a subtle turn of its body toward the village. But it was enough. The air changed. The rain stopped, completely, not thinning, not easing, stopping. Every drop hung in place like thousands of suspended beads of glass. The village froze in a picture of impossible silence. Even the wind ceased. Smoke rising from a cooking pot halted in midair, forming a still spiral. Time had paused. A child cried out, but the sound exited his mouth with no echo, no resonance, like a muted scream underwater. Gabriel spun around, terrified. "Elias, what's happening?" Elias closed his eyes. "It's choosing what?" Elias swallowed hard. Whom to speak through next? The villagers staggered back. No, choose someone else." A young man cried. An old woman fell to her knees. "God, have mercy. God, have mercy." But Elias shook his head. "It's not God," he whispered. Gabriel stiffened. "Then what is it?" Elias lifted his face toward the frozen rain. The voice said it was a messenger, but not one we would recognize. Not one scripture has ever mentioned. Older than every name we have ever given the divine. Older than the first word spoken by the first human throat. Gabriel backed away. No, this is blasphemy." Elias's lips trembled. "Then tell him," and he pointed at the silhouette. The figure stepped forward, only once, but that single step bent the air around it, sending a ripple across the frozen raindrops like a shockwave through glass. Then, slowly, they began to melt. Drops dissolved into steam. Steam vanished into vapor. The sky cleared into an unnatural stillness, and a voice spoke. Not from the mountains, not from the sky, not from Elias, but from everywhere at once. A whisper and a roar and a breath and a tremor, all layered together. One of you will carry my arrival. A baby began to scream hysterically. Chickens flapped wildly against their coops. Doors slammed open and shut. The villagers trembled. Then a single raindrop fell. One, it drifted downward in slow motion, glimmering with golden light. Every pair of eyes followed it, falling, 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 and landing on Gabriel's hand. He stared at it. The drop didn't behave like water. It glowed, it pulsed, it sank into his skin. Gabriel gasped, stumbling back so violently he tripped into the mud. His chest heaved. He clutched his wrist. No dash, no dash, no dash, not him. Elias crawled toward him, urgently. Gabriel listened to mitts, only a mark. It hasn't entered you fully. You can fight it. You must fight it. I have served God my entire life. Elias grabbed him by the shoulders. Then maybe that is why. Gabriel's eyes overflowed with terror. Then his body jerked violently, once, twice, and then he went still. The villagers recoiled. Even Elias flinched. Gabriel slowly lifted his head. His pupils had turned completely gold, not glowing like Elias's, but burning. He rose to his feet, shaky, as if learning to stand for the first time. When he spoke, it was not his voice. Prepare. Lightning exploded across the sky. The silhouette vanished from the mountain ridge. Gabriel collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Elias rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. Gabriel's breathing was shallow, his face ghost white. Elias, he whispered weakly. What did it put in me? Elias held him tightly. A seed, he murmured. A seed of something that should never walk this earth. Gabriel trembled in his arms. Am I dying? Elias shook his head. No. He helped Gabriel sit upright, holding his shaking hands. You're becoming something else. Gabriel's eyes widened in horror. No, please, Elias, please, help me. Don't let it take me. Elias closed his eyes. I'll try. The villagers watched in terrified silence. The storm had ended, but something much worse had begun, because the golden mark on Gabriel's hand was still glowing. And far away in the mountains, as the clouds parted, something massive exhaled. Gabriel did not sleep that night. No one in the village did. After the storm ended, after the golden lightning split the sky for the last time, after the silhouette vanished into the mountains, the villagers barricaded their homes, bolted every door, and prayed until their voices cracked. But none prayed harder than Gabriel, because he could feel it, the mark. It pulsed beneath his skin, warm at first, then hot, so hot it felt like fire crawling through his veins. His hand twitched uncontrollably, his arm locked up, his breath hitched every few minutes in painful spasms, and worst of all, there was whispering, soft at first, then louder. Not words, but impressions, images, sensations, something brushing against his mind like a wet, cold fingertip, tracing the edges of his thoughts. Gabriel sat hunched in the darkness of his room, head in his hands, elbows on his knees. The candle flickered violently, as if afraid of him. He whispered desperately, get out, whatever you are, get out. But the whisper inside him only deepened. Not leaving, entering. Gabriel slammed his palm onto the wooden table, breathing hard. His vision blurred, flashes of mountains, valleys, a throne of something that wasn't stone or gold or light, a shape that didn't fit inside the boundaries of human sight. He staggered to his feet, gripping the wall. A sudden knock jolted him. Gabriel, Elias. Gabriel's heart lurched in his chest. His voice shook. "Don't come in." But Elias pushed the door open anyway. The moment Elias stepped inside, the air changed like the room exhaled in relief. The whispers softened, shrinking back, retreating into Gabriel's arm like a shadow fleeing the sun. Gabriel collapsed into the nearest chair, trembling. Elias knelt in front of him. "Tell me what you're seeing." Gabriel raised his trembling hand. The golden mark glowed beneath his skin like molten metal. "I see him." Elias stiffened, but did not look away. "What does he want?" Gabriel swallowed hard. His voice thinned. "To be born." Elias's blood ran cold. Before he could respond, Gabriel gripped his collar with surprising strength. "It's not God, Elias." His breath hitched. "It's not God. Whatever that thing is, it lies. It wears the voice of something holy, but when it looks at me, I feel," he shuddered violently, "I feel like a mouse standing in the shadow of a starving lion." Elias placed a steady hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "You're strong enough to resist it." Gabriel laughed, a broken, shaky, bitter sound. "Elias, it's inside my thoughts. How do you fight something that moves every time you blink?" His head dropped. "I can't pray. Every time I try, the voice speaks over me." Elias tightened his grip. "Then I'll pray for both of us." Gabriel's eyes watered. "You should leave. I don't want it to touch you again." Elias shook his head. "No, if I leave, you die." Gabriel stared at him, a long silence. Then Gabriel's body jerked, suddenly, violently. He gasped, eyes widening unnaturally. The golden mark flared brighter, and something spoke through him, not with his voice. Something layered, something vast, something wrong. The vessel struggles. Gabriel's mouth opened wider, unnaturally wide. The hollowing begins. Elias grabbed Gabriel's face, forcing him to look into his eyes. "Fight it." "Gabriel, listen to me. You are stronger than it." Gabriel's jaw locked, his back arched. Veins bulged beneath his skin, glowing faintly gold. The entity spoke again. "The flesh resists. The soul trembles. The host bleeds prayer." Elias's voice cracked as he yelled, "Let him go." Gabriel's entire body convulsed. Then silence. He collapsed into Elias's arms, limp, drenched in sweat. For a moment, Elias thought he had died, but then Gabriel whispered, "Thank you." Elias held him tighter. "I'm not leaving you," he whispered. "I don't care what it is. You're not facing it alone." Gabriel's voice trembled with exhaustion. "You don't understand, Elias. You're not just here by chance." He swallowed hard. "You were the first. It touched you before it touched me." Elias froze. Gabriel lifted his shaking hand, touching Elias's chest weakly. "It's drawn to you. Every time it speaks through me, it looks for you." His voice cracked into a whisper. "Because you're the one it really wants." Elias felt the world tilt. "But it chose you," he said quietly. Gabriel shook his head. "No," he coughed. "It chose me because you resisted." Elias's heart pounded. "What does that mean?" Gabriel met his eyes. "It means you're the only one who can stop it." Wind howled suddenly, slamming the door shut with a force that rattled the entire house. A new whisper entered the room, not from Gabriel, not from Elias, from the darkness itself. Soft, amused, cold. "The game begins." And something moved on the mountains outside. Something huge, rising like a living shadow under the moon. The whisper faded, but its presence lingered like a cold hand pressed against the back of Elias's neck. He turned slowly toward the window. The moon, half obscured by clouds, cast a pale, trembling light across the slopes. The silhouette that had vanished earlier was returning, not on the ridge, closer, lower, descending, but this time it was not alone. Shapes shifted behind it, branching, flowing, wrong. Forms that were not bodies, yet moved like they had several. Limbs bending in directions that defied bone. Glowing lines pulsing like veins of molten gold. Elias felt the air thicken, heavy as tar. Gabriel clutched his arm, his breath weak but urgent. Close the window, close it. Elias reached for the shutters, but stopped. Something was standing in the rice fields below. Not the silhouette, not quite a person, not quite a shadow. A figure, slim, still, watching. Then another, then a third. They lined the irrigation path, unmoving, facing Elias's window as if waiting. Gabriel whispered, "They're not alive." Elias swallowed hard. "What are they?" Gabriel's voice was thin but sharp with terror. "Shells." Elias turned slowly. "Shells. Empty bodies," Gabriel whispered. Things it hollowed out before. A chill crawled down Elias's spine. Gabriel continued, "When I was a child, I heard stories, old myths from the mountains. Tales of a creature that could step into a man's mind and scoop it out like wet clay." He shuddered, leaving the body breathing, standing, but empty. Moving only when the thing wants it to. Elias stared at the figures below. Their heads were slightly tilted. Their limbs hung loose. Their faces were expressionless, yet wrong in a way that made the stomach twist. "Why are they here?" Elias whispered. Gabriel grabbed his wrist. "For you." Lightning illuminated the sky for the briefest second, and in that flash, Elias saw every hollow face turn upward. Toward him, Elias stumbled back as if struck. Gabriel exhaled in panic. "It's trying to make you afraid. It's succeeding," Elias muttered. "No," Gabriel said weakly. "You don't understand. It doesn't want you afraid because fear makes you weak." He shivered. "It wants you afraid because fear opens the door." Elias froze. "The door." Gabriel nodded with a haunted expression. "The door inside your mind." A long silence stretched between them, then a knock, not on the door, on the window. Both men froze, slow, soft, insistent. Knock, knock, knock. Elias's breath hitched. He forced himself to look. A face was peering through the shutters, pale, motionless, unblinking. One of the shells. Its lips moved, but no sound came out. Gabriel gripped Elias's arm tightly. "Don't look at it." Elias couldn't look away. Its eyes, deep, empty pits, widened slightly, as if recognizing him. Knock, knock. The shutter burst inward, and the shell lunged halfway through the window, arms desperately reaching for Elias with jerky, broken movements. Elias staggered backward, nearly falling. Gabriel screamed, "Don't let I touch you." Elias grabbed a wooden chair and slammed it against the shell's arms. Bones cracked. But the thing didn't react. It simply kept reaching, kept grasping, kept seeking. Elias brought the chair down again and again until the thing's wrists snapped cleanly sideways. The shell collapsed backward, out the window, limbs bending like a puppet with its strings cut. But the moment it hit the ground, it stood back up, slowly, wrongly, its head twisted back toward him. Gabriel collapsed into the corner, clutching his glowing hand as pain surged through him. "It's controlling them," he gasped. "They're not trying to kill you." He pointed at Elias with trembling fingers. "They're trying to touch you." Elias's chest tightened. "Why?" Gabriel clenched his teeth. "Because if even one of them touches your skin, The voice won't need me anymore. Elias stared at him. Lightning flashed again, and dozens of shells now stood in the fields, watching, waiting, moving closer. Elias whispered, "Gabriel, what do we do?" Gabriel forced himself to his feet, leaning heavily on the wall. "We run." Elias blinked. "Where?" Gabriel looked toward the dark mountains. "The only place it can't follow us." Elias frowned. "And where is that?" Gabriel's voice dropped to a whisper, terrified even to say it. "The old sanctuary." Elias's blood went cold. "No one goes there. People say even God left that place." Gabriel nodded. "That's why we'll be safe." Outside, the shells took their first synchronized step toward the house. One step, then another. Elias grabbed Gabriel under the arm. "Can you walk?" Gabriel nodded weakly. "I can try." Elias took a deep breath, steadying his shaking hands. "Then we move now." Gabriel whispered one last warning as the shells drew nearer, their feet dragging across the wet earth. "Elias, whatever happens, don't let it speak your name." Elias swallowed hard. "What happens if it does?" Gabriel's eyes were full of fear. "It will enter you." The shells reached the edge of the house, and Elias blew out the candle. The darkness swallowed the room as Elias and Gabriel stumbled into the night. Mud sucked at their boots, cold air clawed at their lungs. The rain had stopped, but the world smelled of wet earth and electricity, as if the storm had left a lingering heartbeat behind. Behind them voices, not whispers, not words, footfalls, thousands of them, slow, heavy, uneven. The shells. They didn't run, they didn't stumble, they didn't hesitate, they walked relentlessly. Elias tightened his grip on Gabriel's arm. "Keep moving," he said. "Don't look back." Gabriel's golden-marked hand throbbed. Every few steps he stumbled. Every few breaths the voice inside him surged, murmuring in ancient tones, calling, seeking. Elias forced him forward. "Not yet. Not yet. You survive until we reach the sanctuary." Ahead, through the blackened fields, a faint light shimmered, moonlight reflecting off a cracked stone wall. The sanctuary. But it wasn't near. The shells multiplied. Every flash of moon revealed more shapes on the hills, moving toward them, stretching unnaturally. Elias ducked under a low branch. "Run," he hissed. "Run." Gabriel's knees nearly gave out. Elias grabbed him, dragging him across the mud. A shell burst from the tree line, its face twisted, head jerking unnaturally, limbs folding sideways. It lunged. Elias swung a fallen branch. Crack. The creature's arm snapped. It didn't matter. Another took its place. Gabriel gasped. "We can't." "You can," Elias yelled, pushing him forward. "We both can." The sanctuary grew closer. Stone walls, crumbling arches, the faint scent of incense lingering from decades past. It had been abandoned for years, hidden in the mountains where no human had dared enter. But tonight, it was their only hope. The first shell landed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. He froze. The voice surged in his mind. Elias hit the creature with the branch, shattering its wrist. Gabriel screamed, partly in pain, partly in terror. Elias grabbed him, hauling him the last 10 meters to the sanctuary entrance. Inside, the air was stale, filled with dust and shadows, but safe. For the moment, the shells pressed against the doorway, their pale faces peering in. They didn't speak, they didn't cry, they simply waited. Elias slammed the heavy wooden doors shut. A dozen locks and bars later, they were secure. Gabriel collapsed, shivering violently. His golden mark glowed faintly under his skin. Elias knelt beside him. "It's not finished," he said. but we're safe for now." Gabriel's voice was a trembling whisper. "Safe until when?" Elias shook his head. "I don't know, but we have to fight. We have to understand what it is before it uses you completely." Gabriel looked at his glowing hand. "I feel it, inside me, watching, probing, laughing, and yet, part of me wants it. Part of me wants to listen." Elias's jaw tightened. "That's what makes it dangerous. That part of you is the door." They sat in silence, listening to the rain of a distant storm, now far away. Then, as if on cue, a whisper entered the sanctuary, soft, almost imperceptible. "You cannot hide, but I am eternal," Gabriel screamed, the voice echoing inside his skull. Elias grabbed his shoulders. "Remember what I told you. Don't let it speak your name." The golden mark pulsed, spreading warmth and cold at the same time. Elias felt it, the presence, not human, not angelic, but ancient, stretching tendrils into the room, probing, testing. He swallowed hard. "This is just the beginning," he muttered. "Nothing like this has ever happened before." Gabriel looked at him, eyes wide. "Then, what do we do?" Elias stared at the pulsing mark, at the shadows crawling along the walls, and whispered, "We survive, and we prepare." The sanctuary trembled. Outside, the shells retreated, momentarily waiting, watching. Inside, Elias and Gabriel understood the truth. The game had begun, and there would be no turning back. The sanctuary was silent, but it did not feel empty. Dust hung in the air like a fine fog, disturbed only by their movements. Candlelight flickered, casting shadows that stretched across cracked stone walls and faded murals. Symbols from centuries past, etched, painted, carved, gazed at them like silent witnesses. Elias knelt beside Gabriel, who was curled on the cold floor, shivering. The golden mark glowed faintly beneath his skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. "I can feel it," Gabriel whispered, "inside me, pressing, whispering, pulling me." I tried to fight it, but he swallowed. "It knows me better than I know myself." Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone. I'll help you understand it. We'll figure out how to fight it before it fully enters you." Gabriel looked at him with terrified eyes. "What if it's already too late?" Elias shook his head. "No, you survived because you resisted part of it. That means it's not done yet. That means it can be stopped or, at least, delayed." A sudden gust of wind swept through the sanctuary, rattling the broken windows. Candle flames danced violently, casting grotesque, moving shadows across the walls. Elias turned. He noticed a hidden alcove at the back of the sanctuary, partially obscured by fallen debris. A small chest, carved with symbols that matched the murals, seemed to hum faintly like it held a heartbeat of its own. "Look," Elias said. He moved toward it, brushing aside dust and cobwebs. The chest was heavy, old. Its lid creaked as he opened it. Inside lay scrolls and codices, brittle with age. Their pages were etched with strange characters and diagrams, some geometric, some organic, all glowing faintly with a substance that looked almost like liquid gold trapped under the parchment. Gabriel struggled to stand. Elias handed him a candle for light. "Read them," Elias urged. "These were left here for a reason." Gabriel reached for a scroll. As he unrolled it, his eyes widened. Strange illustrations depicted figures with glowing marks similar to his standing before towering, shadowy entities. One figure, marked in gold, held a staff that seemed to repel the shadow completely. Elias leaned over. Those marks, their vessels, chosen humans. and the entity's ancient beings that can only enter through them. They've done this before, hundreds of years ago. Only the mark chooses the vessel, and only the vessel can resist long enough to survive. Gabriel's hand twitched. Then, I'm the next one. Elias nodded grimly. Yes, and the longer you resist, the more it fights. But there is a way if we can find the right tools, the right knowledge. It may not destroy you completely. A low hum filled the sanctuary. Both froze. From somewhere in the shadows, a faint golden light shimmered, not the mark, but something else, something alive. The scrolls vibrated in Gabriel's hands, and a whisper soft, coaxing entered his mind. You will obey. You will become the bridge. The vessel cannot refuse. Gabriel's body stiffened. His eyes flickered gold. Elias grabbed his arm. Don't listen. Fight it. Focus on me. The whisper deepened. It was everywhere now, layered over itself, echoing through the stone walls. The bridge is ready. The flesh is weak. The mind will bend. You are mine, Gabriel screamed, voice breaking under the pressure. His body convulsed, glowing more brightly with the golden mark. Elias gritted his teeth and held him steady. You are stronger than it. Remember the bridge. Remember who you are. The whisper recoiled, as if Elias's words struck it. The golden glow faded slightly. Gabriel collapsed into Elias's arms, breathing raggedly. The sanctuary fell silent once more. Elias exhaled slowly. We need to prepare. You cannot face it alone, and I cannot fight it alone. There's more in these scrolls. There may be a way to control it, or at least contain it. Gabriel's voice was barely a whisper. If I lose, if it fully enters me. Elias shook his head. No, you will not lose. We will find a way. And when we do, it will never touch the world outside this valley. Outside, the wind began to howl again. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The entity would not rest, and the valley and every soul in it would soon be caught in a war between a human vessel and an ancient godlike power that no one had seen in centuries. The sanctuary's walls seemed to breathe, filled with the distant echoes of centuries of prayers, warnings, and forgotten names. Elias and Gabriel worked in silence, their candlelight flickering across the ancient scrolls. The golden mark on Gabriel's hand pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, in sync with the unseen power outside. Elias spoke first, his voice low, determined. We need to begin the ritual tonight. Whatever this thing is, it respects order, structure, symbols, names. That's why the sanctuary still stands. That's why the scrolls remain. Gabriel's eyes flickered gold as he lifted his hands, trembling. And what if I fail? Elias shook his head. You won't. I won't let you. But you have to trust me completely. No hesitation, no fear. You have to channel the resistance through yourself, not fight against it. Gabriel swallowed hard and nodded, trying to steady his breathing. Then, let's start. Elias opened one of the scrolls. Ancient symbols glowed faintly as he traced them with a stick dipped in water from a nearby fountain. The shapes pulsed as he drew lines and circles across the sanctuary floor. Gabriel watched, memorizing the patterns. The air thickened, the shadows deepened. The golden mark on Gabriel's hand throbbed violently, sensing the entity approaching. Outside, wind shrieked across the mountains, carrying the distant, hollow sound of the horn. The shells had returned, lining the hills and fields around the sanctuary. Their stillness was unnerving, waiting for something they could not yet touch. Elias chanted in low, careful tones, reading from the scrolls. The language was strange, guttural yet melodic, resonating with the sanctuary itself. The walls seemed to hum, responding to each syllable, vibrating with energy that prickled at Elias's skin. Gabriel stepped into the center of the ritual circle, knees shaking. He lifted his hands as instructed, palms outward, facing the glowing symbols. "Focus," Elias whispered. "Channel the mark. Let it flow through you, not against you." Gabriel closed his eyes. The whispers returned, soft coaxing, pressing at the edges of his mind. "You belong to me. You will obey. You cannot resist." Elias tightened his grip on the staff he had placed across the circle. "Not yet. Focus on the circle. Focus on the symbols." Gabriel's body shook as the mark flared bright gold. Sweat streamed down his face. His knees buckled, but he held his position. The whispers became screams in his mind, echoing, overlapping, relentless. Then, slowly, the screaming faltered. Gabriel's eyes opened, glowing gold, but this time under his control. He raised his hands higher, and the symbols on the floor glowed in response, radiating a protective light. Outside, a shell stepped forward, sensing the surge of energy. It paused, then retreated, wary. Elias nodded. "You're doing it. Keep going." The whispers in Gabriel's mind began to dissipate, replaced by clarity. His heartbeat synchronized with the pulsing light of the circle. The mark's glow no longer threatened to overwhelm him, it responded to him. The shells outside shifted uneasily, some retreating down the hills, sensing the sudden protective aura emanating from the sanctuary. Then a thunderous voice shattered the night, deep and resonant, rolling through the mountains. "You dare resist." The sanctuary shook violently. Candles went out. The wind screamed through the broken windows. Dust swirled in spirals. The shadows elongated, creeping along the walls. Elias grabbed Gabriel. "Don't falter. You control it." Gabriel's hands blazed with golden light. His voice, though weak, joined Elias in the ancient chant. Together, they created a harmonic resonance that filled the sanctuary, forcing the shadows to recoil. The mark on Gabriel's hand pulsed in rhythm with the circle. Every beat sent waves of protective energy outward, pushing against the entity's influence. The screaming outside intensified, but the shells could not enter the sanctuary. Elias whispered, voice shaking, "This is only the beginning. But you've taken the first step. You've resisted fully. You've survived the first trial." Gabriel gasped for breath, collapsing into Elias's arms. His glowing hand dimmed slightly, but warmth remained. Outside, the shells retreated to the mountains, unwilling to confront the glowing circle again. But the golden voice remained, echoing in the distance, promising return. "This is merely the dawn. The bridge will be mine." Elias lowered his head, exhausted but determined. "We did it, but we can't stay here. We need more knowledge, more preparation. The entity will not stop, and next time it will come stronger." Gabriel, still trembling, nodded. I understand. We fight, Elias, no matter what. I won't let it take me or anyone else." Elias looked toward the darkened windows, toward the hills where shadows lingered. The wind whispered secrets from beyond the mountains, promising more trials, more horrors, more tests. But for the first time since the mark appeared, both men felt a flicker of hope. The battle had begun, but the war was far from over. The sanctuary was quiet to quiet. The wind had stilled. The hills outside lay shrouded in shadows. But inside, the tension was palpable. Gabriel sat on the cold stone floor, hands folded, eyes closed, trying to steady the pulse of golden energy coursing through him. Elias crouched beside him, poring over a scroll filled with symbols and instructions. Dust swirled around the flickering candlelight, each particle seeming to hum with latent energy. "They're testing you," Elias said quietly. Gabriel opened his eyes. "I don't feel like testing. I feel like screaming." Elias gave him a small, grim smile. "Good. That means the mark is awake. That means it's noticing you. And when it notices, it will play games. It's smart, Gabriel. Smarter than us. And it knows fear like a weapon." Gabriel swallowed hard. "So, what do we do?" Elias looked toward the cracked windows. The shadows outside had lengthened. Something stirred among the hills, unseen yet undeniable, a presence, pressing against the sanctuary without crossing the threshold. "We prepare, and we endure. It will probe you, Gabriel. It will make you doubt yourself. It will try to take you from within. But every time it fails, it learns. And every time it learns, we must be ready." A sudden, sharp gust of wind blew through the sanctuary. Candles flickered violently, then extinguished. In the darkness, a faint golden glow emanated from Gabriel's mark. A whisper seeped into his mind. "You cannot hide. You cannot resist. I am patient, eternal, inevitable." Gabriel gritted his teeth. I will resist." The entity's voice in his head twisted, mocking. "You will obey, even in your defiance." Elias placed his hand firmly on Gabriel's shoulder. "Focus on the circle. Focus on the ritual. Channel the mark through purpose, not fear." Gabriel nodded, trembling. He rose, stepping into the center of the sanctuary where the first ritual had been drawn. His hands lifted instinctively, golden light pulsating outward, forming an aura that pushed the shadows back. The entity's presence intensified. Outside, shells began appearing along the hills, moving in silent synchronization, their hollow eyes fixed on the sanctuary. Elias chanted quietly from a scroll. The symbols on the floor glowed in response. Each syllable resonated with the sanctuary itself, vibrating through stone and bone alike. Gabriel's mark flared brighter, stronger. He could feel the entity probing deeper into his mind, but the ritual acted like a shield, keeping it at bay. Suddenly, the sanctuary shook violently. Dust and debris fell from the walls. The candles reignited, casting long, quivering shadows. A deep, resonant voice rolled through the mountains. "You cannot stop me forever. The vessel will fall. The bridge will open." Gabriel gasped, struggling against the psychic pressure. His hands shook, sweat pouring down his face. Elias leaned closer. "You are not alone. You control this. Focus." The golden aura from Gabriel's mark expanded, enveloping the entire sanctuary. Outside, the shells froze mid-step, repelled by the radiant energy. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, with a shudder, the sanctuary's stones glowed faintly. Symbols etched into the walls pulsed, responding to Gabriel's presence. He felt a surge of understanding, a fragment of knowledge about the mark, the entity, and the ancient rituals. The entity's voice in his head faltered, confused. How is this possible?" Gabriel's eyes blazed. "I am the vessel, but I am also the master. Not yet, but soon." Elias nodded, relief and awe in his voice. "You've learned to bend it to your will. But this is only the beginning. You must train, you must endure, and you must survive." Outside, the shells began retreating slowly, their glowing eyes fixed on the sanctuary. The entity's patience was infinite, but even it recoiled from the protective energy Gabriel now wielded. Elias lowered his voice, whispering, "We've won this round, but the game has only just begun." Gabriel sank to the floor, exhausted but determined. "I will not let it take me, or anyone else. I will control this mark, or die trying." The sanctuary fell into tense silence, the golden glow from Gabriel's mark dimming to a steady pulse. The wind outside whispered of distant storms, of shadows waiting, and of an entity that would not rest until the bridge was complete. Elias watched Gabriel carefully, knowing the next trial would be far worse, because the entity was patient, and it would learn. And patience, in the hands of something eternal, was infinite. The sanctuary had grown colder, the shadows longer. Candles flickered under the weight of unseen wind, and the air felt heavy, charged with anticipation. Gabriel sat cross-legged in the center of the ritual circle, golden light pulsating from the mark on his hand, filling the room with a protective aura. Elias knelt beside him, studying the ancient scrolls. His fingers traced the symbols, whispering the chants under his breath. Each syllable resonated with the sanctuary's stones, reinforcing the protective circle. Gabriel's eyes were closed, focusing, drawing every ounce of energy from the mark. His breathing was steady, but the whispers were louder than ever. "You cannot stop me. The vessel will be mine. The bridge will open." Gabriel flinched, but did not break concentration. "I will resist," he whispered, his voice trembling yet firm. Elias's voice was calm, grounding him. "Remember, it can only enter through doubt, fear, and hesitation. Focus on control. Focus on the mark. You are the master, not the entity." A low rumble shook the sanctuary as the entity's presence descended, pressing on the walls like a living shadow. Outside, the shells amassed, dozens of them, their hollow eyes fixed on the glowing ritual circle. Then, the entity's voice grew sharper, almost audible in the sanctuary. "You cannot contain me forever, vessel. Surrender, and the pain will end." Gabriel opened his eyes. They blazed gold, radiating power into the circle. The aura expanded, pushing back against the entity's presence. Elias whispered urgently, "Focus your mind. Let the mark flow. Don't fight it." The golden glow strengthened. Symbols etched into the floor began to shine, responding to Gabriel's will. The air itself vibrated, as if reality itself acknowledged the mark's power. Suddenly, one of the shells breached the sanctuary walls, phasing through the protective energy. Its hollow face twisted unnaturally, reaching toward Gabriel. Gabriel extended his hand. The mark flared violently. A golden wave shot outward, repelling the shell. It shrieked, sound of broken metal and bone end collapsed, unable to withstand the power. The entity's voice screamed in fury, "Fool, you think you can master me?" Gabriel clenched his fists, trembling, and shouted, "I am the vessel. I control this mark." A pulse of golden energy erupted from his body, filling the sanctuary with blinding light. The walls shook, debris scattered, and the remaining shells staggered back, their forms flickering like dying embers. Elias gasped, awestruck, "You're stronger than I imagined. You've truly taken the first step toward mastery." Gabriel fell to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. His hand still glowed faintly, the golden pulse now steady and controlled. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains, carrying the entity's wrath. Its voice lingered, a promise of return. "This is only the beginning. I am eternal, and the bridge will be mine." Gabriel looked at Elias, determination burning in his eyes. Then we prepare, we train. We will not let it take the valley or anyone else. I won't fail. Elias nodded, placing a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Next time, it will come stronger, and you will need every ounce of control, every bit of courage. But tonight, you've survived. You've won your first battle. The sanctuary fell silent, the golden aura from the mark dimming to a steady glow. The entity had retreated, for now. But both men knew this was only the beginning. The real war, the true confrontation, was still to come. And in the distance, beyond the mountains, the entity waited, patient, eternal, watching. The sanctuary was silent, but it no longer felt like a sanctuary. Shadows clung to every corner, flickering unnaturally under the dim candlelight. The golden mark on Gabriel's hand pulsed steadily, a heartbeat of power and warning. Elias unrolled another scroll, older and more fragile than the rest. Its edges were frayed, the ink faded, but the symbols burned faintly with an inner light. This one contains advanced techniques, Elias explained. It was written by a master of the old rituals, someone who fought entities like yours. If you want control, if you want to survive, you'll need to follow it exactly. Gabriel took the scroll, hands trembling. The whispers had returned, louder this time, layered with mockery and promises of surrender. You are mine. You cannot escape me. The bridge is inevitable. Gabriel's teeth clenched. I am not yours. I will not be yours. Elias nodded. Good. Resistance is the first step. Now, the next is focus. They spent hours in meditation and ritual practice. Gabriel repeated chants from the scroll, tracing the symbols with glowing fingertips, forcing the mark to respond. At first, the golden energy was wild, uncontrolled, threatening to overwhelm him. The entity probed, flickering images in his mind, visions of the valley burning, the village destroyed, Elias falling lifeless, shadows consuming everything. Gabriel gasped, nearly collapsing. Elias steadied him. Breathe. Control the energy. Do not let it control you. These are trials, mental, spiritual, and physical. Each one you survive makes the mark stronger and your mind sharper. Hours passed. Sweat streamed down Gabriel's face. The whispers became screams, then laughter, then silence. Each trial tested him: fear, despair, doubt, and temptation. Each time, the mark responded to his will, bending to his intent. Outside, the entity was not idle. Shells moved through the hills, seemingly distracted by their absence. But Elias could sense a new pressure, psychic probing, testing their defenses, attempting to weaken Gabriel from afar. Elias studied the scroll, discovering diagrams of hidden chambers within the sanctuary rooms that contained ancient relics, artifacts of power designed to amplify or focus the mark's energy. We'll need these, Elias said. They will help you resist, but we have to reach them carefully. The entity will fight us. Gabriel nodded, exhaustion and determination warring on his face. I'm ready. I have to be. Elias guided him to the first hidden chamber. The entrance was concealed behind a broken wall, the doorway etched with ancient symbols that pulsed faintly with protective energy. As they entered, the air grew colder, heavier. Shadows moved along the edges of their vision, almost alive. Inside, a pedestal held a small crystalline orb. It glowed softly, and when Gabriel placed his hands on it, he felt a surge of power, the mark resonating with the artifact. The whispers in his mind flinched, as if the orb's energy pushed the entity back even briefly. Elias watched carefully. This is only the beginning. Each artifact will strengthen the mark, but each one will also tempt you. The entity knows your desires, your fears, your weaknesses. It will use them against you. Gabriel's grip tightened on the orb. I'm ready, he said again. I'll face it. I'll face everything. The golden mark flared brighter than ever, illuminating the chamber. Shadows recoiled, leaving the room momentarily calm. But the entity's presence lingered, patient and eternal. From the darkness outside the sanctuary, the shells stirred, their hollow eyes fixed on the glowing chamber, and in the distance, a low, resonant voice promised, "The trials are only the beginning. The bridge will be complete, and you will belong to me." Gabriel exhaled, breathing deeply, determination etched on his face. He knew the entity was stronger, smarter, and patient beyond human comprehension, but he also knew that every moment of mastery, every artifact, every ritual brought him closer to true control. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Tomorrow, we continue. And tomorrow, the entity will strike harder, but I believe we can fight it." Gabriel nodded, his golden eyes steady. "Then we prepare, and when it comes, it will find that I am ready." Outside, the valley lay in shadows, the shells gathering, and the entity's whispers stretching across the mountains, promising more trials, more terror, more confrontation. But inside the sanctuary, for the first time, Gabriel felt power, control, hope, and he would need all of it for what was coming. The sanctuary was heavy with silence. Candles flickered faintly, shadows stretching unnaturally along the cracked walls. Gabriel stood in the center of the ritual circle, golden light pulsing steadily from the mark on his hand. But tonight, the energy felt different, trained, tested, alive in ways he could feel pressing against him. Elias stood nearby, watching, scrolls open across a stone pedestal. His eyes darted between Gabriel and the shadows at the edges of the room. "They'll come for you tonight," Elias said quietly. Gabriel frowned. "Who? The shells? But more than that, it's testing you directly now. Not through force, but through the mind." Gabriel's heartbeat quickened. He could feel the entity probing deeper than ever. The whispers were back, weaving threads of images and sensations inside his mind. Your friends, your home, your heart. Surrender, and it will all be yours again. Gabriel staggered, grasping his head. The mark pulsed violently, golden light spilling across the room. Elias moved closer. "Focus on the circle. Don't let it trick you. These are illusions, meant to break your resolve. Remember your training, your strength, the mark. Control it." The room shifted. Shadows thickened, twisting into familiar shapes. Villagers Gabriel had known, friends he had lost, Elias himself, but wrong. Eyes glowing faintly gold, mouths whispering lies. Gabriel's body tensed. "No, this isn't real," he shouted. The illusions laughed, echoing around the sanctuary. "They are real enough to you. Let go. Join us." Elias stepped in front of Gabriel. "Don't touch them. Don't speak to them. Hold the mark. Control it. Channel your will." Gabriel clenched his fists. The golden mark flared, and the illusions flickered, wavering like dying embers. The whispers screamed in protest. Outside, the shells began moving again, subtly infiltrating the sanctuary. Some shifted through cracks and broken windows, their forms flickering in and out of perception. They pressed against the walls, testing boundaries, waiting for an opening. Elias chanted from the scrolls, creating a secondary barrier of symbols along the perimeter. The symbols glowed faintly, pushing back the intruding shells. Gabriel's golden aura surged, expanding outward, forcing the illusions to collapse. His voice joined Elias's, chanting in the ancient language, "You are mine. You cannot escape me." The entity's voice roared, echoing in his mind. "You resist, yet the bridge is closer than you realize. The flesh will bend. The vessel will fall." Gabriel's eyes blazed gold. "I will not fall," he shouted. "I control this mark." A surge of golden energy erupted from him, sweeping across the sanctuary. Shadows recoiled violently, illusions shattered into dust, and the shells outside faltered, unable to breach the expanding aura. Elias exhaled. "Good, you held it. But this is only the beginning. The entity will learn from every encounter, and next time it will strike harder, using fear, doubt, even the people you love, against you." Gabriel's chest heaved with exhaustion, yet determination burned in his eyes. "I'm ready. I'll face it again and again. I'll master this mark, or die trying." Outside, the wind howled through the hills, carrying whispers of the entity's patience and fury. The shells retreated, regrouping in the shadows, awaiting the next strike. Elias placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "Tomorrow, we seek the next artifact, and after that, we will prepare for the first true confrontation with it." Gabriel nodded, the golden light from the mark dimming slightly but steady. "The entity will not break me. Not now, not ever." The sanctuary was silent once more, but both knew that calm was fleeting. The entity was patient, eternal, and watching, and the trials had only just begun. Chapter 1, to end this chapter, establishes the entity attacks Gabriel psychologically through illusions. The shells attempt subtle infiltration of the sanctuary. Gabriel demonstrates growing mastery of the mark, repelling illusions and maintaining control. Elias and Gabriel prepare for further artifact retrieval and the eventual direct confrontation with the entity. The sanctuary was quiet, but the air thrummed with latent energy. Candlelight flickered across broken murals and ancient symbols etched into the walls. Every corner seemed alive, shadows twisting subtly as if observing their every movement. Gabriel stood beside Elias at the entrance of a hidden chamber, the golden mark on his hand glowing faintly. He could feel the entity probing, testing, lingering just beyond the sanctuary's protection. The whispers were faint now, but persistent. "The bridge is near. The vessel is ready. Surrender." Gabriel clenched his fists. "Not today, not ever." Elias held up a hand, gesturing to the chamber. "Inside are the next set of artifacts. Each one will amplify the mark and strengthen your control. But the entity knows what we're doing. It will try to stop us, to tempt you, to break your focus." Gabriel nodded. "I'm ready. Whatever it throws at me, I'll endure." They stepped inside. The chamber was small but ornate, filled with pedestals holding crystalline orbs, ancient relics, and scrolls. Each item pulsed faintly with energy, resonating with Gabriel's mark. Elias picked up a crystal orb and handed it to Gabriel. "This one will attune the mark to repel multiple shells at once, but it will also test your mind. The entity may use your thoughts against you." Gabriel placed his hands on the orb. A surge of golden energy coursed through him, the mark flaring brighter. For a moment, he felt the entity's presence inside his mind, twisting his memories, conjuring visions of failure, loss, and despair. "You cannot resist. You will be mine." Gabriel forced his thoughts back to the present, grounding himself in the ritual circles, symbols, and the sanctuary's protective energy. The golden glow expanded outward, pushing back the entity's influence. Elias whispered, "Good. Focus on your intent. Channel the mark through your will, not through fear." Gabriel's eyes blazed as the entity recoiled. The orb's energy integrated with the mark, amplifying its protective aura. Outside, the shells shuffled nervously on the hills, unable to breach the sanctuary's expanding energy field. One by one, they retrieved additional artifacts: a dagger etched with protective runes, a small chalice filled with a glowing liquid, and a scroll describing the final phase of the ritual. Each time Gabriel placed his hands on the artifact, felt the surge of power, endured the entity's psychological assault, and emerged stronger. Elias observed carefully. "You're learning faster than I anticipated. Each artifact strengthens your connection, but also your responsibility. The bridge, it's not just about you. It's about what happens if the entity succeeds." Gabriel's face hardened. "I understand. I won't let it create the bridge. I'll stop it, whatever it takes." A low rumble shook the sanctuary. The entity's presence surged outside, sensing the amplified energy. The whispers returned, layered with anger and frustration. "You defy me, yet the bridge will be mine. Your power is insignificant." Gabriel's eyes glowed brighter, the mark pulsing like a heartbeat of gold. "I am the vessel, but I am also the master. Not today, not ever." Elias nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Tomorrow, we test your strength fully. The entity will strike directly. The shells will attempt to overwhelm the sanctuary. But with these artifacts, you can resist and we may gain the upper hand for the first time." Gabriel exhaled, determination burning in his eyes. "I am ready. Let it come. I will endure. I will control the mark, and the bridge will not exist." Outside, the valley lay in shadows. The shells waited, their hollow eyes fixed on the sanctuary, and from beyond the mountains, the entity's low, resonant voice promised a return. "The bridge is inevitable, and soon you will belong to me." But inside the sanctuary, Gabriel and Elias prepared for the coming storm, aware that the next confrontation could determine the fate of the valley and, perhaps, the world. The night was thick with tension. Outside the sanctuary, the valley was a shadowed expanse, the hills alive with movement. Hundreds of shells had gathered, their hollow eyes glinting faintly in the moonlight. The entity's presence pressed like a physical weight, invisible yet undeniable, vibrating through the walls of the sanctuary. Gabriel stood in the center of the main ritual circle, golden light from his mark radiating outward. His hands trembled slightly, but his expression was resolute. Elias moved among the outer protective symbols, chanting incantations from the scrolls, reinforcing barriers that pulsed faintly under his touch. "The entity is attacking directly," Elias said, voice low but urgent. "It's testing every defense, every artifact, every ritual. You must hold the circle, Gabriel. If it falls, everything falls." Gabriel inhaled, grounding himself. The whispers began immediately, layered and insistent. "The vessel is weak. Surrender, and I will spare them, everyone you love. The bridge is inevitable." Gabriel's eyes flared gold. "I will not surrender." Outside, the shells surged forward in waves, phasing through cracks, attempting to bypass the sanctuary's defenses. The outer symbols flared in response, golden light colliding with shadow. Elias's voice rose in chant, the scrolls glowing as they resonated with Gabriel's mark. The entity's presence manifested in Gabriel's mind, more vivid than ever, towering, faceless silhouette radiating power and menace. It spoke in a voice that was inside and outside, everywhere at once. I am eternal, I am patient, and the bridge will open. Gabriel staggered under the psychic weight, but he forced himself to breathe, to center on the circle, to channel the mark with intent. The golden aura expanded outward, flaring like a sun, pushing back the shells and holding the entity at bay. Elias's voice was steady, commanding. Focus your will. Let the mark flow through you, not against you. Gabriel raised his hands, and the mark's light surged, sweeping across the sanctuary. Shadows shrieked and recoiled. The shells faltered, some retreating, others dissolving into nothingness under the power of the mark and the sanctuary's symbols. But the entity was patient. It adapted, probing Gabriel's mind, twisting his fears into vivid visions, the sanctuary burning, Elias falling, the valley consumed by darkness. Gabriel's resolve wavered, his chest heaving. Yet he remembered the training, the artifacts, the rituals. With a roar, he forced the golden energy to center, pushing the visions back. The mark flared brighter, a perfect, steady pulse, stronger than ever before. The entity screamed, a soundless, resonant roar that vibrated through stone and air. Outside, the remaining shells recoiled, regrouping, waiting. The first wave had been repelled, but the entity was far from defeated. Elias approached Gabriel, exhaustion clear in his eyes. You've held it. That was your first real test under siege. But it will return, stronger, smarter, more relentless. Gabriel's gaze hardened, golden light dimming to a steady glow. Then I'll be ready. The bridge will not exist. I will not fail. Not now, not ever. Outside, the valley lay silent once more. The shells had retreated, shadows still clinging to the hills. But the entity's presence lingered, patient and eternal, promising that the war was only beginning. Elias placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Tomorrow, we prepare for the next assault, and when it comes, you'll need every artifact, every ounce of control, and every lesson you've learned. The first siege is over, but the battle is far from finished. Gabriel nodded, determination etched in his features. I'm ready, let it come. The sanctuary fell silent, but both men knew that calm was temporary. The entity was patient, eternal, and waiting. And the true battle, the one that could decide the fate of the valley, was still ahead. The sanctuary had grown colder, the air thick with the residue of the entity's power. Shadows clung to corners, shifting unnaturally, as if alive. The golden mark on Gabriel's hand pulsed with anticipation, warning, and power. Elias moved between protective symbols, chanting softly from ancient scrolls. Each syllable resonated with the sanctuary, reinforcing the wards. They're coming again, Elias said, voice tense. The entity knows we're growing stronger. It won't attack openly at first. Instead, it'll test your mind, your fears, everything you hold dear. Gabriel exhaled slowly, grounding himself. I'm ready. Whatever it does, I won't falter. A whisper slithered into his mind, familiar yet more insidious than ever. The bridge will be built. The vessel will obey. All will be mine. Gabriel's fists clenched. I am the vessel, but I am also the master. Suddenly, the sanctuary shifted. Shadows lengthened, then formed into impossible shapes. Villagers from Gabriel's memories, twisted, hollow-eyed, speaking in lies and half-truths. Images of loved ones, friends, even Elias in danger, flickered before his eyes. The mark flared violently. Gabriel's pulse quickened, the whispers intensifying, threading through every memory, every thought. seeking a crack. Elias stepped forward. Do not speak to them. Do not acknowledge them. Focus your energy. Channel it through the circle. Gabriel gritted his teeth, closing his eyes. He focused on the golden symbols etched into the sanctuary floor, drawing power from the protective energy, the artifacts, and his will. Slowly, the illusions flickered and wavered. Outside, shells began pressing against the sanctuary walls, phasing through cracks in waves. They were drawn to the mark's energy, sensing weakness, testing boundaries. The golden aura from Gabriel's mark surged outward, pushing them back. The entity's voice resonated inside his mind, a deep, eternal roar. I am patient. I am inevitable. You cannot contain me forever. Gabriel forced himself to remain calm, grounding each breath, each pulse of golden energy. I will contain you, he shouted. I will not fail. A surge of power erupted from his mark, filling the sanctuary with blinding golden light. Shadows writhed and recoiled. The illusions shattered, leaving only Gabriel and Elias standing amidst flickering candlelight. Elias approached, eyes filled with awe and concern. You've held the assault, but this is only the beginning. The entity is learning. It will escalate, and it will attack with everything it has. Gabriel's chest heaved, exhaustion and determination warring in his expression. I'm ready. I'll face it again, and next time I'll be stronger. It will not take the bridge. It will not take me. Outside, the valley was silent, but the shells lingered at the edges, waiting, watching. The entity's presence remained eternal, patient, promising more terror, more trials. Elias placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Tomorrow, we locate the final artifact. One more, and your mastery will be near complete. Then, we can challenge the entity directly. Gabriel's golden eyes glimmered with resolve. Then we prepare. Whatever it throws at us next, I will be ready. The sanctuary fell into tense silence, but both knew the calm was fleeting. The shadows deepened. The entity was eternal, and the ultimate confrontation, the battle for the bridge, was coming. The sanctuary was silent, almost eerily so. The golden mark on Gabriel's hand pulsed softly, a heartbeat of power and warning. Shadows lingered at the edges of the room, twisting subtly, as if alive. But tonight the tension was heavier, charged with anticipation. Elias unfolded an ancient scroll, fragile and yellowed with age. This leads to the final artifact, he said. It's hidden deep within the sanctuary, in a chamber protected by wards, older than any we've seen. If we succeed, your mastery over the mark will be complete. If we fail, Gabriel clenched his fists. I will not fail. I will endure. I will control the mark. They moved through the sanctuary's hidden corridors, each step resonating with latent energy. Candles flickered, shadows danced along the walls, and the golden mark pulsed brighter with every step. The final chamber was concealed behind a massive stone door, etched with symbols that shimmered faintly. Elias placed his hands on the carvings, chanting softly. The door shuddered, then slowly creaked open, revealing a small, circular room. At the center rested a crystalline orb, larger than any Gabriel had seen, radiating a warm, golden light. It seemed alive, pulsing in rhythm with Gabriel's own heartbeat. This is it, Elias whispered, the final artifact. Its power will harmonize with your mark, amplifying it beyond anything the entity can oppose. But it will also tempt you. Be careful. Gabriel stepped forward, the golden light of his mark flaring. As he reached for the orb, the entity's voice echoed in his mind, deep and resonant. You cannot resist me. Surrender, and all will be yours. Refuse, and everything you love will burn. Gabriel's eyes blazed gold. I am the vessel, but I am also the master. I will not surrender. He placed his hands on the orb. A surge of golden energy erupted, enveloping his body. The mark on his hand flared violently, then stabilized, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the orb. For the first time, Gabriel felt complete harmony, a connection so strong it pushed back the entity's presence entirely. Outside, the shells stirred nervously, sensing the massive surge of energy. The sanctuary trembled as the entity reacted, furious that its patient probing had been countered. Its whispers twisted into screams. You fool, you dare to defy me. The bridge will be mine. Gabriel stood taller, the golden aura expanding to fill the entire chamber, radiating outward through the sanctuary. He felt the mark, the orb, the symbols, and the sanctuary itself working in unison. The entity's voice recoiled, forced back by the sheer force of combined power. Elias watched, awestruck. You've done it. The mark, the artifacts, the rituals, they're all in harmony. You're ready. The entity cannot touch you while this remains. Gabriel's chest heaved, exhaustion and triumph warring within him. I will not let it create the bridge. I will stop it, now or never. Outside, the shells hesitated, unwilling to approach the radiant sanctuary. The valley lay quiet, but both men knew the calm was temporary. The entity's patience was eternal, and it would not abandon its plan. Elias placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Tomorrow, we confront it directly, the bridge and the entity itself. Your mastery of the mark, combined with the artifacts, may be the only thing capable of stopping it. Gabriel's golden eyes glimmered with determination. I am ready. Let it come. Whatever it throws at us, I will endure. The bridge will not exist. The sanctuary fell silent. But both knew that the ultimate confrontation, the battle for the bridge, was imminent. The night was suffused with tension. Outside the sanctuary, the valley was dark, the hills writhing with movement. Hundreds of shells massed on the slopes, their hollow eyes reflecting faint glimmers of moonlight. But the real presence was the entity itself, towering, faceless, patient, and eternal. Its voice echoed through Gabriel's mind, omnipresent. The bridge is inevitable. Surrender, vessel. It will all be yours. Gabriel stood in the center of the main ritual circle, the golden mark on his hand pulsing in perfect rhythm with the final artifact's energy. The circle glowed brightly, the walls vibrating with protective power. Elias chanted from the scrolls, his voice steady, reinforcing the sanctuary's wards. Gabriel inhaled, focusing every thought, every ounce of energy. I am the vessel, but I am also the master. You will not build the bridge. The entity reacted, its presence crashing into Gabriel's mind like a tidal wave. Images of failure, loss, and despair exploded in his consciousness. The valley burning, Elias falling, the shells overwhelming the sanctuary. The whispers became screams, twisting into 1,000 voices, each one telling him to give up, to surrender. Gabriel staggered, but planted his feet firmly. The golden mark flared violently, pushing back against the psychic onslaught. The final artifact's energy harmonized with the mark, amplifying his focus. Outside, the shells surged forward, attempting to breach the sanctuary in waves. The golden aura expanded, sweeping them back, dissolving those that approached too closely. The entity manifested partially, a towering shadow cloaked in darkness, faceless, yet radiating power. Its voice echoed, deep and eternal. You cannot resist forever. The bridge will open. Gabriel lifted his hands, golden energy flaring outward. The symbols of the circle pulsed, resonating with the artifacts and his mark. Light collided with shadow in waves, shaking the sanctuary to its foundation. Elias chanted louder, reinforcing the wards, guiding Gabriel's energy, ensuring the sanctuary's stones did not crumble under the battle. Channel it, focus, do not waver. Gabriel closed his eyes, centering himself. Memories of training, the artifacts, and all the trials he had endured filled him with clarity. The illusions of the entity, the whispers, the psychic attacks, they were all part of a test. And now he was ready. With a roar, Gabriel unleashed the combined energy of his mark and all the artifacts. A brilliant surge of golden light erupted, engulfing the sanctuary and spilling into the valley. The shells outside shrieked and dissolved under the power, retreating from the radiant wave. The entity screamed, its voice shattering the air. "No, this cannot be. You are mine." But Gabriel's resolve was unshakable. Every fear, every doubt, every illusion that had plagued him was burned away in the brilliance of his mastery. He stepped forward, and with a final surge, he projected the mark outward, enveloping the entity itself. A brilliant clash of light and shadow erupted, the sanctuary trembling, the ground shaking. The entity roared, resisting, twisting, attempting to tear into Gabriel's mind. But the harmonized energy of the mark, the artifacts, and Gabriel's will proved stronger. Finally, the entity shrieked and recoiled, its form unraveling like smoke. A final whisper echoed, fading. "This is not the end. I am eternal. The bridge will rise again." And then silence. The shells outside lay dissolved, the valley quiet, and the sanctuary stood, bathed in golden light. Gabriel sank to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. Elias approached, eyes wide with awe. "You did it. The entity is contained. The bridge will not exist." Gabriel looked up, golden eyes steady. "It's over. For now, but we must remain vigilant. Patience is eternal, but so is willpower." Elias nodded. "Today, you became more than a vessel. You became a master. The valley is safe, the entity restrained." Gabriel exhaled, looking at the glowing mark and the artifacts around him. "I've endured, I've mastered, and I've stopped the bridge. That is enough." For now, outside the valley lay in peace, the night calm for the first time in countless trials. The entity had been repelled, the shells destroyed, and the sanctuary stood as a beacon of golden light, a symbol that even eternal darkness could be resisted. Dawn broke softly over the valley, washing the landscape in a gentle gold that felt like a blessing after the night's violence. Wisps of smoke rose from scorched lines etched into the ground where the shells once gathered, and faint traces of shimmering energy still pulsed where the protective circle had held. The world was quiet again, quiet in a way Gabriel had never heard before. He sat on the stone steps outside the sanctuary, his body exhausted, his mind emptied, and his hand still glowing faintly with the golden mark. The light no longer roared, it simply pulsed, like the slow heartbeat of a sleeping flame. Elias approached with several ancient pages tucked under his arm. Some were torn, others singed, but they were intact, and that alone was a miracle. "The mark still shines," he said softly. "You can feel it, can't you?" Gabriel nodded. "It's quieter now. Almost peaceful, but it's still there, like a whisper. Very far away, Elias sat beside him. It won't fade completely. Nothing that old ever truly disappears. But you didn't have to destroy it. Forcing the entity back into the other dimension and preventing the bridge from forming was more than enough. That alone has not been done for centuries. Gabriel exhaled, the tension in his shoulders finally melting. I didn't do it alone. No, Elias agreed, but you were the one at the center. The bridge chose you, and you chose the world instead of the power it offered. A breeze swept through the valley, stirring dust and ashes, carrying with it a strange sense of renewal. Gabriel looked toward the horizon. For a moment, he thought he saw a distant shadow flicker too fast, too faint to be real. It'll come back one day, he whispered. Not soon, not in a year, but someday it will try again. Elias did not deny it, and when it does, we'll be ready. This sanctuary won't remain a place of defense. It will become a school, a place to train those who sense the veil, who can stand like you did. Gabriel turned to him, golden light reflecting in his eyes. A school for willpower. For will, Elias said, and for understanding. Light isn't the opposite of darkness. It's what survives inside it. Gabriel rose slowly, stretching his tired limbs. I'm not a master, he said. Not yet, but maybe. I can be a good teacher. Elias smiled. You already are the kind of master this world needs. Together, they walked back into the sanctuary. The ancient symbols and dormant artifacts waited inside, ready to be restored, expanded, and passed on. Behind them, the valley glowed gently under the rising sun, peaceful, serene, whole, but far below the earth, buried beneath layers of time and forgotten energy. A faint exhale echoed the patient breath of something waiting. The end was not a final sentence. It was only a final chapter, and the next story waited for Gabriel to step toward it.